There we go. There we go. Ooh. Myself. Okay, let me try again. Sound sound is better or no? I'm just gonna wait because if I have to do something different, I don't want to carry on. Okay, Ginny says I have sound. Okay, so let's start this again. Sorry about that. Let's take two on this. So welcome to Stamping with Melva. I'm Melva Peters, and I live on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. And it's Thursday night, and I'm here with what I call time for a technique. So every other Thursday night, I do a technique, and then the alternating weeks, I do a mystery challenge. So tonight, I'm going to do a technique, and I'm going to show you. I had a request. Somebody asked me to show some techniques around using vellum cardstock. And so I'm going to make two cards tonight. One is fairly easy and one's a little more complicated, but they're two different techniques for using vellum cardstock. One is double stamping. So it's actually stamping with our regular ink pads and then doing some stamping with Versamark and heat embossing. Hello, everybody. My goodness. Hey, Dawn. Ginny from Alaska. Welcome. Mary from Vancouver, Washington. Welcome, everybody. Susan. Great. Okay, and so then the other technique is actually embossing using an embossing folder. So just a really easy technique to make a card with a really pretty, it turns into be what I think is a really pretty image when you emboss your vellum. Okay, I'm going to get started with the heat embossing one, and then while that's kind of drying, we'll move on to the other one. So let me flip over to my desktop. Okay, so I'm going to use, this is the Season of Chic. This has become one of my absolute favorite stamps. And then I may throw in this one. I call it a spinner. Some people call it a key, but it's from the Soft Seedlings. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure exactly which stamps I'm going to use. So I've got a piece of Evening Evergreen. Grabbing my paper trimmer. So this is cut 4 1/4 by 11 and scoring it at 5 1/2. And we will take and fold into the mountain or the raised line and a good crease. Okay, so then I've cut a piece of basic white cardstock. So this is kind of going to be my base layer. And that's cut 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I cut a piece of vellum cardstock. And I think this is cut, 3 inches by 5 1/4. And then I've got 2 pieces of Evening Evergreen because what I'm going to do is kind of put these on either side. So this piece is 1 1/2 by 5 1/4, and this piece is 1 inch by 5 1/4. But you can make these however wide or narrow you want them. But basically, I'm just going to leave a slot in the middle where I've got the vellum cardstock. Okay, so let's do that. And let me grab this. Ooh, I have a brand new Versamark ink pad, never been used. It's always so exciting to open up new ink pads when they have never been used. Look how clean this is. Oh my gosh, just so lovely. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to do some stamping using Versamark. And on the other side of it, I'm going to stamp using our regular ink. But I want to do my Versamark. It does, all of this takes a little bit. The heat embossing doesn't take so much to dry. It takes a little bit to cool down. But the stamped images, you definitely want to be leaving lots of time. So I'm gonna do my Versamark and my heat embossing first. Then I'm going to stamp, and then I'm going to move on to the other card. Okay. So now, what am I going to? You know what? I think I'm going to use the key, this spinner, and that's what I'm going to heat emboss. So I'm going to somewhat randomly, now you're not going to be able to see this, but somewhat randomly, I'm going to stamp kind of down my piece of vellum cardstock. And it's kind of going on and off, and I'm turning it as I go. So these are going to be kind of the pops of color. And I grabbed copper because I thought that copper and evening evergreen would go really pretty. Now, I don't actually have usually I have a spoon, which helps me sort of keep my embossing powder under control. That's not too bad. Just trying to get some. There we go. So I've got 4, and I'm just going to grab. Probably should have used the Embossing Buddy from the kit, but I didn't. So I'm just going to take my brush and just kind of brush. And I think I want one more image. Well, maybe not. And maybe it'll be okay. I was thinking in this corner, but that's actually not going to show. So that's my piece with the powder on it. So I'm just going to bring my heat embosser, my heat tool in. Now, when you're heat embossing, what you want to do, this will curl a little bit. And unless you tape your vellum down, there's really no way to stop it from curling, but mostly just apply as little heat as possible. So just enough that you can get it melted. So as always, hold your heat tool in one spot until you start to see it go from this kind of dull matte to shiny, which it does. The magic starts to happen. And then you can start moving it. So once it starts to melt, then move it around so you melt the rest of it. And as I said, the less time you keep your heat tool on your vellum, the better, because then it will curl less. All right, so this is going to be my kind of pop of color. Now you don't want to touch this because this is warm, and you could actually spread it's kind of liquidy at this point in time. So we're just going to set this aside. You can see I always make such a mess with my embossing powder. So this is going to go on like this, and then on the back of it, we're going to stamp those other leaves in evening evergreen. So I'm going to set this aside, let that cool. Oh, actually, sorry, I'm going to let that cool. I'm going to stamp it now, and then I'm going to set it aside because I want to make sure that these leaves that are stamped in the just regular ink pad are going to have lots of time to dry. So I'm stamping these in evening evergreen, and I'm kind of going over this. This is what's going to show. Hopefully this will look okay. That's kind of a thought. I'm not going to set it down, but you can see that I have both of these images. So I'm just going to turn that over so it's on the side that has the ink on it, and let's set that aside. And hopefully by the time we have the other card done, because as I said, it's a little quicker, this will be all dry and ready to go. All right. So the other technique that I want to show you is embossing embossing your vellum using, and I've got evening evergreen ink on me. Never fails. All right. Let's wipe my hands. Try to get the ink off. Okay. So I'm using, this is the Whimsical Woodland embossing folder, and I just thought this would look really pretty. So I've cut a piece of my vellum cardstock that is 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I'm just going to put it in. Let's move this out of the way. Bring my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine in. So this is a 3D embossing folder, so it's one of the thick ones. So I'm just going to try and get this lined up so it's fairly straight. There we go, roughly. Put it in, and for this you need plate number 1 and plate number 4. And when you're putting your embossing folders through, there used to be, I haven't had this happen in a long time, but it occasionally in the past, when you ran them through, they would actually rip on the fold. Now, these are pretty hefty, but they do recommend that you put either the fold in first or the opening in first, and don't run it through on the sides, if that makes sense. I'm not sure what difference that makes, but that is the recommendation. Hey, Deborah, welcome. Oh, no, you're good. Oh, good. Okay. Move this out of the way. So when you emboss vellum, hopefully you can see this, it kind of turns kind of white. It's a bit like if you've ever taken wax paper, and I don't know what they call that in other countries, but we call it wax paper in North America. At least I think, at least in Canada, we call it wax paper. And when you kind of, you know, take a, scratch it, you get this white. Well, this is similar to that. So I've run it through my embossing folder, and now I've got this, what I think is a really pretty image. This is the kind of the raised side, and this is the debossed side. I'm going to use the raised side just because I think it's really pretty. And then I have gone ahead and cut out, gosh, I got so much going on here. Okay, I've cut out a piece of Sweet Sorbet cardstock. This is 4 1/4 by 11, and I'm scoring it at 5 1/2. For those of you that have followed me or follow me on a regular basis, you probably have guessed I like to make tent-fold cards. I'm not sure why, but they tend to be my favorite. So I tend to cut them, my cardstock, 4 1/4 by 11. All right, so again, Sweet Sorbet, 4 1/4 by 11. And again, I've cut a piece. So you don't have to cut a piece of basic white. So this is looking quite pretty. But and in fact, I think I'm not going to, because you completely lose it. So I was going to put white underneath it, but I'm not, because you completely lose the look of the embossed. Now, one thing you will note is this may not look too bad. Sometimes when you try to adhere vellum cardstock down, you will see your adhesive underneath it. Now, I'm thinking this one may not be too bad. You can try and hide it. What I'm going to do is I am going to use Stampin' Seal, and I'm going to put my Stampin' Seal kind of right over, or right in the spot where I'm going to put, come on, Stampin' Seal, where I'm going to put my sentiment. So most of my, this is not behaving. Let's see if I can get it going. There we go. Most of my card base, or my vellum, is going to be kind of free floating here. I may end up putting some glue dots in the corners, but I don't know. Yes, you can see that. You can see here where you can actually see my adhesive. So putting it in a spot that's going to be hidden. So I've cut a piece of Sweet Sorbet that's 1 inch by 4 inches, and then another piece, a piece of basic white. This is going to be my sentiment. So this is 3/4 of an inch by 4 inches. So that hides my adhesive perfectly. And for this one, I've decided to use, this is the Trees for Sale stamp set. Hey, Betty, you're welcome. You can always watch it on the replay. So I'm going to use this Christmas Greetings, and I'm going to stamp it in Sweet Sorbet. Ginny, your sister lives in in Vancouver, BC, or Vancouver, Washington. Okay. Perfect. Not too far away from me, a little bit south. All right, so I'm going to take and I'm stamping this Christmas greetings in Sweet Sorbet. I absolutely love Poppy Parade, so Sweet Sorbet is right up my alley. Okay, so we will take this and adhere onto this piece. So this is, like I said, this is a really quick and easy card. You can take and make these in no time at all. And I'm just going to grab, this is the Sweet Sorbet Baker's Twine from the, this is the 5 package of all, you get all 5 colors. It's a great deal. You get 20 yards or something like that of, actually, I think it's more than that. You get 50 yards. You get 5 different colors of all the, like all of the in colors, and you get 10 yards per package. So I'm going to take and just wrap this around my hand 3 or 4 times. Take and then pinch the 2 sides together. And I'm going to just take and put some adhesive. So this is just going to kind of be messy. You can tie bows if you're not into messiness. And then I'm going to put my sentiment over top. Now this is wide and long, so I always stagger my dimensionals because I don't like it to be kind of sagging in the middle. So just kind of, and I use more dimensionals when it's bigger like this, but stagger them and that way it won't kind of sag. And then this will go right over top. Like that, the ribbon or the twine behind it. And I was, let's see, no, I was going to use the metallic, not metallic, the decorative matte dots in the in colors, but I have completely used all of the Sweet Sorbet. So these are the iridescent pearls. So we'll put some iridescent pearls on this. So just kind of. And add some more. There we go. All right. And then the last thing I want to do on this one is I have a piece of basic white cardstock. And I'm just going to take and stamp one of these trees from the trees for sale. And again, this is going to kind of be a monochromatic. And I'm going to stamp this in Sweet Sorbet. There we go. Just so I have something on the inside of my card. And since I have my Stampin' Seal handy, we will use it. So that's one card so that's a few tips around using vellum cardstock and then embossing using an embossing folder. Now, if this bothers you to have this free floating, you can use glue dots to just kind of put in the corners, and I might do that. We'll see how that bothers me, if it bothers me. But just be aware that when you use adhesive behind a vellum, you will see it. So be kind of strategic in where you're using your adhesive. And anyway, I have my sentiment's not looking very straight, but we'll fix that later. All right, so that's card number 1 finished. Let's go back to the first card I started. So this is the double emboss, so the embossed and then double stamped. I am going, actually this looks like it's dry, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my heat tool and just run over the stamped images because I just want to make sure that they really are dry. I don't want to do too much of this because it could kind of start to melt the embossing powder on the other side, but just to make sure that it's kind of got some, or it's dried as much as I can. Okay, so now this piece was cut, what did I say, 1.5, and so it'll fit, kind of line up. On this one I am going to put the white behind, and this piece will go up against it, but I want to tuck this underneath. So I'm just gonna kind of see where I want to line this up. Kind of like that, so that I can see some of the embossed images and then some of the stamped images. Okay, so it's about 1/4 inch from this one side. Now I'm going to take and use my Stamp and Seal just down each side, just right against the edge. And like I said, it was about 1/4 inch from that right-hand side. Like that. And then these two pieces, you could either adhere them flat, or I'm actually going to take and emboss, or not emboss, raise them up using dimensionals. Got embossing on my mind tonight. All right. So this Season of Chic stamp is one, if you don't have it, is one that is on 15% off. So there's a sale going on right now, one-day sale only. So it finishes at midnight tonight Mountain Time. So stamp sets from the annual catalog, excluding host stamps, are 15% off. So if you haven't, hey Sandy, haven't thought about an order, the Season of Chic might be one. So that's only from the annual catalog, not from the July to December mini. Okay, and so we're just going to line that up with the edge, pop that up, and the same with this one. I could have done some more stamping on it if I wanted to. I actually grabbed my Parakeet Party thinking it would look pretty, but oh well. I didn't use it. All right, so then this will go against this edge. And now this absolutely needs something on it more than what I grabbed. So I am going to add some Parakeet Party. I'm going to add some Parakeet Party baker's twine. So I'm just going to wrap this around and tie a bow. Ah, there we go. Caught my card. There we go. There we go. All right, so let's see how we can do this. So if you can't tie a bow, I'm not sure I can, maybe I can, without it getting loosening, use a glue dot or use the tweezers from the embellishment kit. I didn't really talk about using the Embossing Buddy. Let me grab it. So this is the embossing kit that is available in the mini catalog. And in it, you get a tray for the embossing powder with this great kind of nozzle that you can pour your embossing powder back in. Comes with this really nice brush, these great tweezers. Gosh, I've used them for so much. And then the most important thing, the coolest part, is the Embossing Buddy, which Stampin' Up! Used to sell separately and haven't for quite a few years. This is actually filled with cornstarch, probably. At least that's how I've heard you can make them. And what it does is take the static away, which I probably should have used before I stamped on the Versamart or on the vellum. But what it does is take the static away. And so you all do want to kind of rub it over your cardstock or your vellum so that you don't get extra embossing powder on your cardstock or vellum. Because if you get extra, you will end up heat embossing it, and then there is no way to get rid of it. And if I was going to make this card again, I probably would emboss using an embossing folder on these pieces because they're looking awfully plain, at least to me. But let's see if we can fancy them up using some of these matte decorative, or matte, what are they called? Matte decorative dots in the In Colors. So we will use some of the Parakeet Party. Yeah, I think this does need something more on the card. It is pretty, but I do think it needs something more on here, and I probably should have done some heat or some embossing with an embossing folder. But it's too late now. So if you're gonna make the card or a card like it, you might want to consider that. So now I'm just going to take and I'm going to stamp this leaf on the inside of the card. If you follow me, you may notice I don't often stamp sentiments on the insides of my cards, but I do put something on the inside, whether it's a stamped image or some designer series paper. That way I can actually use the card for whatever occasion comes up. Like this might make a nice masculine birthday card, but it could also be a thinking of you or a sympathy card for that matter. So I tend not to. Now I was going to put a sentiment on the front though. So I even grab some paper. Where's my piece of cardstock? So let's do that. Let's use and I even grabbed it, the thinking of you. And I'm going to stamp it in Parakeet Party. Let's just see if we can brighten this front up a little bit. So I'm going to stamp this in Parakeet Party. It says thinking of you. And I'm going to just fussy cut, because if you watch me, you know that I tend to do that for sentiments. Not sure where that habit came from, but there we go. All right, this will brighten it up a little bit. So let's just take a couple of dimensionals and put, let's see, I've got a couple, there we go. All right, we'll go there. Actually, I need to double dimensional this one side because I've already got one dimensional here. So I need to raise this one up a little bit. There we go. All right, so there, that brightens it up a little bit to say thinking of you in Parakeet Party. But you can see the shine, kind of a pretty card. All right, let's bring both of these cards back in. So two different techniques. Embossing technique, one with the heat embossing and one with an embossing folder, but both of them are embossing vellum. So if you have any questions about embossing vellum, or any, you're not sure how to do it or need some more tips and tricks, just reach out to me. I'm happy to try and answer your questions. If you have a technique that you'd like to see or a product that you're interested in that you haven't played with, just leave a comment or leave a comment on my Facebook group or Facebook page. I'm happy to see if I can figure it out if I've never played with it myself, or show you some different ways that you can use some of the products. So yeah, always open for that. Or if you have a stamp set that you'd like to see me use, if I have it, I'm always happy to pull it out and see what I can create with it. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. Now, Saturday, I will not be live. Normally, I go live at 11 a.m. Pacific on Saturdays, but I'm at an all-day stamping demonstrator event on Vancouver Island. And so I will not be live on Saturday, although if you do join me at Stampin' Chat on Saturday night, I will be having my Stampin' Chat. So my next live will be Sunday at 12 noon. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. Happy stamping. Bye.